We're live. Woo! Welcome everyone to the Sacred Relationship Lab with men's coach Stacy Taylor and the happiness hustler Joanne Webb. Nice to have you all here, and we are here to talk about all things relationships. Nothing is off guard. Anything can be discussed here, and you'll hear it from the male and the female perspective, which I think is a nice rounded perspective, really. We might not agree, we might agree. Let's find out and see. Should we just dive straight into our first question, Stacy?
Yeah, let's go. Let's crack it open and get some juices out of it.
So the first question posed by a listener is, I get the silent treatment whenever anything goes wrong. The silent treatment can last anything between hours and days. And I don't know what to do about it.
So this is a woman asking this question, yeah?
Yeah, it is a woman asking, but I have heard it the other way round as well. So I do know there's a lot of men out there who are doing the silent treatment as well. It's as a mechanism when they fight. But the way this question was posed as well, it was like, even when it's not my fault, I get the silent treatment. Whenever there's any kind of conflict, he goes and just does the silent treatment, even when it's, and I don't like to say it's your fault, my fault, but even when perhaps he's more should be coming maybe to apologize. In fact, is actually just given the silent treatment. What do you think about that one then, Stacy?
So the first thing I'd say is just have a look back in your childhood where you were given the silent treatment, where your emotions were ignored, where your needs were also ignored. The more that I go on this journey of self-discovery, healing, and growing as a man, I realize that we recreate our childhood. So often we're actually wanting the silent treatment because it's one of our shadow needs. And the other thing you can do beyond that is, often men will shut down because they don't want to face what's coming up, which is way deeper than the argument or the disagreement, or because what I've learned is that, I believe we're on the cusp of a huge shift in consciousness. So you've got all the stuff coming up for both parties, but if I look into it, I'm going to start a journey that I'm not ready to start. So sometimes that can be just quite immature in my books. Like, to me, you should be able to communicate. You should be able to, if things are going, and even for me, this is a big thing as a man. Like, if there's a disagreement between me and my wife, and I'm in a space where, look, I'm not ready to deal with this right now, I'll tell her. I'll say to her, look, I know you're this, or I can see this is going on for you. I need some space, and I'll come back to you, and we can sit down in a space that's more, when we're in a better place, or when I'm in a better place. That's, to me, taking responsibility, but it's also communicating to my partner that, hey, I haven't just given you the silent treatment. I hear what you're saying. Maybe it's triggered something in me. So as a man, I'm going to be responsible and just take some time away, but I'm going to communicate that to you so that you know that, hey, I'm not dismissing you. I'm not ignoring you. I'm not giving you the silent treatment.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that, if you don't sit down and talk about it, it's going to get worse. And, the biggest thing I believe as a man is take responsibility. So even if your wife comes to you or your partner comes to you and you feel like it's not your fault, like, I just have this rule now, I take 100% responsibility for everything in my life. And that's a level of responsibility that most men don't want to take, because it means that they have to look at themselves, find the answer, and fix it. And, like, when you silent treatment your woman, she feels unsafe. She feels unseen. She feels, basically, the best word is unsafe. So if I feel unsafe as a woman, I'm going to shut down, I'm going to close down, and I'm going to keep myself guarded. So, maybe it's time to sit down and say, hey, what's up with the silent treatment? Where is this coming from? And if that doesn't work, then yeah, you've just got to start to honor what you need. That's where I'd see it. But look back and see where you've experienced silent treatment in your life, I'd almost guarantee as a young girl or a young teenager, your feelings were dismissed. You were shut down when you needed support. And when you can resolve it within yourself, it might shift in your relationship too.
Yeah. And I totally agree with everything you're saying. I do. And like, I think it's important to understand the silent treatment is a coping mechanism for something that they have experienced. It doesn't make it okay. It's all well and good having an understanding as well. But also what we have got to understand is the silent treatment is an emotional form of abuse. It's
Mm.
abusive. It's really, really emotionally abusive. And I think that's not talked about enough, because it's all well and good. And I really appreciate what you said, Stacy. You know, I've had my partner as well. He's learned through himself that sometimes he can be explosive. So he doesn't like to deal with things then when he's feeling that anger and it might come out wrong. So he would want to walk away. And I said, that doesn't actually work for me, because that actually makes my nervous system go off because of things I've experienced in my childhood. And as a woman, I'm a talker. I like to talk things through. But however, if he says to me, I'm just going out the house, I'm just going to leave for an hour. And I'm like, okay, that's great, because I've got an understanding then. Whereas if somebody just walks out the door, that abandonment issue, even though I'm very healed along my journey, I still have it there. It's still abandonment to me. I still feel flail and go, oh, what the hell's going on? No matter how grounded I can be, we're all human. But it just takes that small effort of communication to say, I can't talk right now. However, if somebody is doing the silent treatment, I remember my mum telling me this story. She grew up in a household where her mum used to give her dad the silent treatment for months on end. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that tension, that energy in a house? So in our family, no matter what's been said, we literally talk a second later. Literally. Like we could just be, it could be like, I remember as teenagers, you know, three girls in the house, my mum and me and my sister, and it could occasionally we'd all be hormonal and be like little cats. Second later, we'd all talk. It was really important in our house to do that. And I can see why, because she grew up in this awful tension, which is abusive. And I just think that's really important for people to hear, that if you are the person doing the silent treatment, it's not actually okay. It is something that also you need to go and work on urgently, because it's
Yeah.
not good for you and it's not good for your partner, and it's an avoidance technique. And I know it comes from childhood wound, it comes from somewhere. I'm not blaming you at all, but I am saying it's something you can work on, and that can change, because it's not okay.
Yeah. I always say it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
So if as a man, you're feeling triggered or you're shutting down, like look at it, find someone outside of your relationship, like that can help you to just unpack this and
Mm.
start to, figure out why am I shutting down. But one of the keys as a man is communicate, like communicate to your partner, to your wife, that you know what, I can't deal with this here, right here and now. So I'm just going to take some space, but I'll come back to you. Because the biggest thing I've learned is that when a man is certain, even in an uncertain situation, like you said, Joe, like if he tells you this and leaves, you're like, oh, I'm okay. Like he's seen me, he's acknowledged me, he's communicated to me, and we'll sit down at a time that's right. So, what I would suggest to you is, find a time to sit down with your partner or your husband and tell him, the impact. Just say that, the silent treatment, how it's impacting you, how it's making you feel, and the way that he responds will tell you a lot about where he's at. And so that's the first step, because often we don't know we're doing these things or the impact it's having on others. And when we're called out on it, we'll either be really, really triggered and, want to defend, or we'll go, oh shit, I didn't even actually know I was doing that. So, and you don't know what you don't know till you know. And, you know, communication until you heal as a man, especially for men, women are natural at communicating, I think, more natural. They're in touch with feelings and emotions, and so for men, often it feels like a personal attack because there's a trigger within you. So that's what I'd say: is sit down, have a conversation and say, hey, what's up with the silent, I'm really struggling with the silent treatment around whatever's going on. What's going on? How can we work through this? How can we communicate? And how can we start to talk about these things and bring them into some kind of resolution,
Yeah, I would say exactly the same from the other way round as well, because I know that there is the women out there doing the silent treatment and vice versa. If you're a guy and your woman is giving you the silent treatment, say it from how it makes you feel.
Mm.
Look, and also the best way to always communicate is calm and clearly. So these are not the type of conversations to have while you're in the middle of a row. These are the type of conversations to have while everything is nice, everything is smooth, everything is okay, and just to sit down and say, can we have a little can we have a little talk? And say it from my point of view, like when we argue, it's upsetting enough when we feel like, but when I get the silent treatment, I feel. And often I feel unloved, because it's almost like that love has been removed. The silent treatment makes the love feel like it's all gone, makes people feel alone, makes people feel abandoned, rejected. And there's all of this stuff that comes up for us. And no matter how, and whenever you're feeling one way, that's often how the other person is feeling as well. Bring it, if you're feeling it, they're usually feeling it. They're usually masking it with the silent treatment by doing the silent treatment. It's a protective mechanism, believe it or not, when we do the silent treatment. It's to try to protect whoever is the one being silent. It's just not very productive. So yeah, do the same, exactly what you say, Stacey. Have the conversation, this is how I feel. Is there anything we can do together as a team to stop this? Can we just have that one line, like, I just need some space?
Yeah. And there's like some really deep shadow needs in a relationship that I've worked out. And you touched on it. For women, it's abandonment. And for men, it's rejection, right? So if he doesn't acknowledge you, if he doesn't see you, it's just naturally going to kick up that deep wound of abandonment. Like, oh shit, is he going to leave me? Am I going to be exiled from my marriage? Am I going to be safe? For men, it's the rejection part. So, often if he's shutting down, there's maybe a part of him that's feeling like he could be rejected by you or something. So I'm really big too on sometimes get out of your actual home environment and go somewhere else to have these conversations. Don't always do it at home where the conflicts are happening.
Mm-hmm. Go
My
for a
wife and
walk
I
on the
went out.
beach.
Yeah, we went to dinner the other night and had this in-depth conversation at dinner, because it's out of the home, it's a different environment. People think you're mad because you're like talking about deep shit, but I don't care what people around me, think. I don't give a fuck. I'm about improving my life, being a better man, having a better relationship, having a better marriage. And yeah, it's just I find sometimes just getting out of the home environment where there's so much that's been going on in that space, you can create a new space to talk about it. But yeah, my biggest thing is it's really hard to communicate until you start doing the work on why you're being triggered in the first place.
Yeah.
So men will always defend themselves, and when you're from a defensive place, you can never hear the other person's point of view. So it's really important. Like I know we keep banging on about it, but keep doing the work. And, I'm really big on, not a lot of women are doing the work. So if you're doing the work and you're bringing this to your man and he's constantly not, even entertaining the idea, you've really got to start to look at things honestly, not the fairy tale of the relationship you think you can have. Be honest. What am I receiving? Because often the mirror is there for you to see that what you're allowing over time, you're actually choosing. So,
Absolutely. It's enabling all the way. And I think that's where a lot of women, I know you talk about a lot of women doing the work, and there are a lot of women out there doing the work. However, there is still a lot of women who have done the work and are still enabling. We're still
yeah.
enabling behaviors. We're hoping and praying and just looking for little bits of light that it's going to change. It will never change until people do the work. It's as simple as that. It won't. There's just no fairy godmother with the magic wand. It takes the grit and determination and the desire to want to change. That's actually always the first point. It's the desire to want a different outcome. And for whatever reason, some people will stay stuck in the loop, and that is their journey. As sad as that may seem, as lovable as most people are, they will stay stuck in the loop. And it's down to when you have done the work, I believe it's you sit there from an empowered choice and say, is this what I want in my life? And then that's when unconditional love kicks in, especially, and you always say, like, you know, love starts with self, Stacy. And it's like, okay, well, I love this person, but I can no longer do this in a relationship anymore. I can't do it. So I'm going to have to choose another option. And unfortunately, that's often where it gets, because one person is just way more evolved than the other. And if you choose to stay, at least stay with empowerment and say, well, I'm just going to stay and I know I'm not going to change them, so I'm not even going to try. Do you know, it's stay with that place of empowerment rather than victimhood.
Yeah, I always say I love you. I do. I really love you, but I love me more.
Mm.
Right. So, you know, like the ultimate form of self-love is self-respect. So if I'm doing the work and my partner isn't, and I'm constantly being disrespected and I choose it, that's the wound that I actually need to overcome. That could be leaving the relationship. That could be, my lesson here is to see that I'm choosing disrespect, whatever it is, through staying in a relationship where I know I'm being disrespected.
Mm.
Some of these lessons are a lot closer to home, but it's so hard because we condition into, you know, find the one and stay married till you retire 65. And then we look at our parents and we seen what they did and we seen what they accepted in relationship. So, you know, stepping out of these things is challenging. But the first place I would start is to sit down with them and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling when you give me the silent treatment. This is what it's doing to me.
Mm-hmm.
What do we need to do to be able to talk about this, whether it's in the moment or down the track?
Yeah.
Because the more it goes, the worse you feel, and then the more afraid you are to actually speak your truth, and you just keep spiraling down.
Yeah, I agree. And communication is always going to be the thing that makes or breaks you one way or the other. Either the lack of communication or, you know, crazy communication when it's all exacerbated and everybody's all het up. However, calm, clear, concise communication is always going to be the most helpful in any situation. I said to my son the other day, he was like talking about me and he was like, rah, 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 and he was using this big voice. You know, he's 6'3", he's freaking massive, and he's talking to me. And I said, you know what? He said, you can say anything to me if you change your voice. I said, I will listen to anything you have got to say. I said, go out into the garage, punch the punch bag, come back in and then talk to me. And he did. He came in and he told me everything he felt in a really clear voice. And we had the most beautiful conversation. Wasn't necessarily all the things we wanted to hear, but it was like, you can actually talk about anything. All parties went away feeling good because they'd been seen, they'd been heard, they'd been understood. It'd been a two-way conversation. It hadn't had to explode into this craziness. Calm, clear, concise. So always check your energy before you have any communication as well. If you think it's going to turn into bubbling rage or something, go shake that out, go change it, you know, and then come in with a few deep breaths. And tears are okay, emotions are okay, but bubbling over anger is never going to get you anywhere.
Definitely not. And I think that's one of the things. So if the two dynamics that will play out with a man that hasn't done the work is, number one, shut down, or number two, spark up.
Yeah. One way or the other, and it's like one extreme to the other, isn't it? We're like, we'd like somewhere around about here, please.
Yeah. So once you know, my wife can say some pretty deep shit to me now, and I'm just like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like water off a duck's back. I hear it, I don't react to it, and then I investigate it, and then I investigate it for myself. Is this true? You know, is this true for me?
Yep.
Look at it from her point of view, take responsibility and accountability. And if I have to own my shit, then I own my shit. And I don't put it back on her. I just go, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry for that. Let me work on that. Because there's nothing more attractive as a man to be able to own your shit and to actually be able to deal with your feelings instead of it spewing up in your emotions, spewing up in the world with your woman. This is why, you know, there's a big thing around men taking their shit to their woman and showing all their emotions. And I don't believe that's true. What I believe is that you should, you know, showing emotion, say someone passes or something like that, that's beautiful. You know, if you cry in front of your partner and she holds you, but if you've got emotional shit going on that you need to deal, go to a fucking coach. Because if you start being over emotional in your fucking relationship, she's going to shut down and start to become your mother. And this is why I say to men, emotions are beautiful when you're in the right space. So, someone that you love dies and you break down and cry in front of your woman, or you show some tears of joy at, one of your children's weddings. But if you're being over emotional and, you're not regulated, that's the number one way to kill your relationship. So, go to a coach and deal with your stuff so that when your partner comes to you, instead of shutting down, you can take a breath, you can communicate, whether it's I need some space, I'll come back to you, I'll handle it, whatever it is. I think it's really big. And this is why I talk to like masculinity and mature masculine. Like when you're mature, you're going to respond instead of react.
Yeah, I agree. And I love all of that. And it works both ways. We do not want codependent relationships. That is not what a sacred relationship is. We don't want I don't even want a codependent relationship with my clients. I don't want them to codepend on me. They don't depend on me. I want to have clients who are autonomous, who can do the work while being fully supported. I certainly don't want a boyfriend or a husband who's codependent on me. That's just, and as you say, I certainly don't want to be somebody else's mother. I've got 4 kids of my own. I don't want to mother somebody else. And there's a big difference. And ladies, you've got to hear this is a big difference in nurturing and fully loving somebody than being their fucking mother. You know what I mean? Like there's so many of us out there, and I was one of them once upon a time, who was just a replacement mother. That's not a relationship. It's not sexy. Doesn't put you into your feminine. Certainly doesn't make you want to get into bed with your son. I mean, it just throws all the dynamics off. It's just yuck. And we don't even realize we're in it until we get out of it. So I totally agree. There's the men who need to go and do their work so they can be in their masculine maturity. And there's the women who need to go and do the work to be in their full feminine flow. But, and when both of us do the work, whoa, oh my God, the relationships are like, I always think about these like wings coming together of the masculine and the feminine, it just being held. And it's like that. It's just so amazing and explosive in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And this is the thing we've got to understand. None of us had rites of passage. So we haven't individuated from our parents.
Mm-hmm.
So our romantic relationship is our mirror to individuate from our parents and to step into our true potential and power. So, like your partner shutting down that's how he handled it as a boy. Like, I can't deal with this. This is too much. Shut down. So, like do the work. That's really
Do
all
the
it comes to.
work. We should have t-shirts with the slogan on "Do the work, do your work," and just have it on hats and everything. That should just be our slogan. Do your work. It's so true though, because honestly, if you did, you'd be a whole heap happier. Right, we're going to go on to another question because that was a really juicy one, and I think a lot of people will resonate with that. Whether it's the total silent treatment or people just shutting down and walking away, I think there's so many gold nuggets in that conversation. So that was awesome. The next question is, since we've had children, I don't get any affection anymore. And again, this is actually posed from a man. This one, I don't get any affection anymore, and I think he's thinking that he might want to go and sleep with other people, which, you know what? I can actually see why. I can see why these things happen. Again, doesn't mean anything's okay. Doesn't mean I'm not saying, yeah, that's all fine. But we're primal. We're primal beings. We're sexual beings. We want love and affection. We're here for love and affection. And I think you and I, Stacey, have talked about this before. The best way we can possibly live, isn't it? Like self-love, look after number 1, which sounds really selfish, but it's actually not. It is if you're anyway, look after number 1. Then number 2 is look after you and your partner. And then it's number 3, look after you and your partner and your children. But I know I'll be guilty of this as a mother. When I first had my child, I was 23 when I had my first boy. I was just so overblown by this love that I felt, this pure unconditional love. I just gave it all to him. And then I desperately wanted another baby and desperately wanted another one. And I was just in this love bubble of giving everything I possibly can to my children. Nobody taught me. I didn't have a role model to say, Joe, you need to go and do some time for yourself. It's actually important to go and do that. Instead, what happened for me as a woman, I went straight into that guilt mode. Mothers carry so much guilt, don't we? It's like, oh no, I can't do anything for myself because that would be awful leaving my child. That's a bad mother. That made me feel guilty. Wasn't taught to do it. And by the end of 12 years, after having 4 kids and 12 years later, I had a nervous breakdown, literally. And I mean, my husband, we were still married at the time and then we got separated, but whether or not he went off and slept with other people, I've no idea. But it's like, I could see why he would have if he did. Can totally see.
You said this question came in from a man.
Yeah, this came in from a man. He's feeling neglected. He wants love, and if he wants to have that connection still with his wife, he loves her, finds her hellishly attractive, but she's so into the kids that he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to get in there and help.
Yeah, I can relate to this one. You know, like for years I'd say to my wife, "Oh, I just want you to love me like you used to," and she would say, "What does that mean?" And I could feel like the trigger and the inside of myself. And one day I was looking at her and I could feel the thought process coming up. And then I come back to that center statement that I shared earlier. I take 100% responsibility for what I'm seeing and experiencing in my reality. And this is really hard for people to understand, that you are creating the game. And I was sitting there and I was like, fuck. You don't even love and respect you. You're not even showing up for you. How the fuck is she meant to? She's mirroring back to you the disrespect you're having for yourself. So I just started to shift that within my own self. And then all of a sudden, bang, it started happening in my reality. So one of the things that I've learned with men is when they start to put the walls around their heart, they're going to want something, but they're afraid of being rejected. The number one fear of a man is being rejected. So right now, as a man, there's a part of you that wants it, but the subconscious frequency is, I'm afraid to open up in case she rejects me and chooses the children. So that's what's being mirrored to you in your reality. Burn the boat. Burn the boat. Create a date night one night. Tell her, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. This, it could be a weekend away. It could be a date away, depending on the age of your children. Just create something and make it happen. And watch her go, oh, fuck. I need this. As Joe just shared with you, 12 years of holy shit, I'm just focused on the kids, and look up and, oh. And one thing I'd share with you is that sleeping with someone else, until you resolve it, will ruin you as a man. It will ruin your relationship, because you're trying to fill a hole with an external thing that will never fill the hole. Trust me when I tell you this. So the first thing I would do is communicate. Communicate with her how you're feeling, what's going on, but take leadership and realize that you're actually trying to avoid being rejected while being rejected unconsciously. So if you want that woman, she wants to be claimed. So fucking look, hey, we've been with the kids. We haven't actually had any time. I haven't actually been able to date you as a wife, to court you, to romance you. Here's what we're doing. Here's the day we're going to go and do it. I've organized the babysitter, whatever it is, and here it is, and watch her mount. But take it slow. Take it slow. Take her out for dinner, glass of wine, whatever your guys' thing is. Take her for a walk along the beach. Allow her to open to you in this confidence of, you know what? I know it hasn't been right, but I'm fucking going to make it right. And watch her mount. That's from the masculine or the male point of view, because what I've learned, and I work with men every single day, is unconsciously they're afraid of being rejected. So they create the rejection themselves, so because it doesn't hurt quite so much if I go all in with her and she chooses the kids. So
do you know what, Stacey? I absolutely love every word of that. And I'll go a step further from the woman's point of view. As again, as I explained earlier, I can understand why all this happens. I can understand the love bubble and the guilt that women feel. But also, you've just basically given the advice to step up in his full, pure, beautiful masculinity and to take over. And actually, do you know what a woman needs? A woman needs to help to be felt like a woman, because at the minute your wife will be feeling like a mum, and a mum is not sexy. So how can she possibly want to jump into bed with you? How can she want to snog you and be intimate and kiss you? And remember, intimacy is not about sex. Intimacy is about trust. Intimacy is about being our heart being safe and our emotions being safe. So I totally agree with everything you're saying, but also give her some time out to go and feel like a woman. Let her go, and I don't know what it is for her, but is it go and get her hair done? Is it going to buy a new outfit? Is it, if she's put on weight while she's having kids, is it to help her to go to the gym, give her that time to go to the gym? Is it encouraging her, is it making some nice whole healthy food at home so everybody feels better? There's other steps you can take as well as what Stacy said, because sometimes I know women, our brains are going, they're so full. They're full of everybody's schedules, where everybody needs to be, what everybody needs to have. And we are the nurturers. We are the looker after us. We try and putting everybody else's needs above our own. Try to help her learn to put her needs first. She has to take responsibility for that as well. But maybe she doesn't even realize she's probably just stuck in this big loop of children and chores and love. And, children deplete us a lot. They take a lot out of us, let's face it. So help her get into her femininity. Run her a bath and say, go on, honey, go have a bath. I'm not going to let the kids get in the bath with you tonight. No, I'm going to do all that. You don't worry about them. Just get in the bath. Because she's probably being that stuck of guilt and the loop as well, and not putting herself first. So be there as that support person to help her get back into her femininity.
Yeah, confidence, man, as a man. Like, you've got to be willing to face rejection and realize it's not rejection as the primal or the wounded part of you would be receiving it. It's, oh, she's tired. Example for me is, so our kids have left home, but there was a concert coming up that I knew my wife and I love this guy's music. And I just went online, I booked the tickets, I booked the motel, and I told her, we're going next Tuesday, but I told her, babe, we're going to this concert on this day. You need these days off work. See you there. And you just see her fucking face, man, like, oh shit, I'm being led. I don't have to think. I can surrender into this. And he's had thought in it. So as men too, often you're trying to get sex, right? So you're trying to gear the experience so you get sex. Try this. Create an experience that's not about you and watch. Learn what her love language is. Learn what she's into. Learn what music she likes, or concert, or foods, or restaurants, or experiences. And create that without needing anything. Like, give the love that you want to receive and you'll receive it. So, like for me, none of that experience was about my personal outcome. I was like, fuck, this is what I'm going to do. This is where we're going to go. Done. I'm just booking it, done. But in saying that, I know what the outcome will be, but I don't need it anymore. Because the joy of actually giving is so fulfilling. You think you want to receive, but you actually want to give. And then when you give, you receive. And then it's unconditional. And this is what our wounding puts us into. Conditionally opening up. Conditionally loving, conditionally giving. And the more you keep conditionally giving, the more you'll prove that I'm getting distant or more distant from her.
Yeah. Perfect. I love it. And we are here to give, aren't we? But it has to be, but when we give, and I'll talk this from the woman's point of view, when you give and overgive and don't get anything back, that's not an exchange of energy. So it is, I can totally see it from that masculine point of view. And I think there's so many women out there who want their men to take that kind of control. I've got so many girlfriends, and I've known a lot of people in my 40 odd years on this planet, and they've always had the same complaint. They're the ones organizing the holidays. They're the ones organizing the date nights. They don't get, somebody doesn't just come up and Richard Gere on Pretty Woman and go, there's your dress and there's your diamonds. Let's go out. And okay, we don't need the dress and the diamonds. It's the sentiment. It's the booking. It's the actually not having to choose, not having to make another fucking decision. So it goes a long way, things like that. So we do, I think there's more women. How can more women be in their femininity by more men being in their masculinity? That's how.
And it doesn't matter what you do. Like, I can remember when I was broke and going for a really shitty time, I just set a table up on the back lawn with candles and cooked dinner.
Beautiful.
And it's just, so to you guys out there, it doesn't have to be an fucking expensive date with dresses and flowers. If you've got that ability and that's what she loves, do it. But 9 times out of 10, you'll do that, and that's not what she wanted. So you've got to look at what actually sets her soul on fire, not mine, and give her that. And the first thing is lead. Like, lead with confidence. Most guys don't want to create a date because they're afraid she won't like the date, so they never have a date, but all they want is a date.
I know. It's like there's like,
because we get caught in our wounding, and then we get caught in our head, and then we're afraid to make a decision, and then we haven't dated so long, we're doubting ourselves. And just make a decision and do something. Because the sooner you move forward, the relationship will move forward. Like, she could be just so absorbed in life and her children, and what it's like, Joe, you get so down the hole, you haven't even looked up from the hole to realize there's dates. We can still date. We can still romance. We can still flirt. We can still, be wild. So you've got to, like I say all the time, men are meant to lead. All the men are out there saying, I want a feminine, soft woman, but you don't lead and take the direction for her to be that. She's not just naturally, can you be feminine today? No. If you're in your boy psychology and you're immature masculine, she will naturally mirror back to you. I always say it in my videos. The feminine is either liberator or the trap for the masculine, because her nervous system will absorb your frequency through sexual exchange and being in your presence. And eventually she will start to mirror it back to you, and you won't like it. And there's your opportunity to liberate yourself and her, or go into the trap.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. 1,000,000%. And I love the fact that you touched before on love languages. They're one of my favorite things, and it totally changes couples when they learn about it. Like, a lot of people still don't even know this, and you're like, okay, it's the most simplest thing. There's 5 love languages. There's physical touch, there's words of affirmation, there's gift buying or gift giving, there's quality time, and there's acts of service. And people are like, oh, okay. And then when you break them down, there's obviously lots of subcategories underneath those 5 categories. But find out what your love language is as well. Every man, every woman, however you identify, what is your love language, and what is the love language of those around you? Even like, I've done the love language quiz with my children and everything. It's such a beautiful way to enhance any relationship that you have. If one of your children is really, if words of affirmation is their main love language, and your partner, imagine that. And then imagine if your words of affirmation is with your partner, and then you do the silent treatment. That's probably the worst thing that you could do to somebody whose love language is words of affirmation. They need words, and you take that away, that's going to be way worse for that person than somebody else whose gifts is their top love language. So work with these love languages. Go find out. You do the simple quiz online. It's the most simplest thing, and find out what your love language is and how you receive love. Because I've been in relationships. My primary love language is physical touch. I've been in relationships where they've ticked all the other boxes, but they've not been in the physical touch. And I've sounded really ungrateful. Like, oh, I know you've made me a really beautiful dinner, and I'm really grateful for that. However, we've hardly even touched over the last couple of days. And they're like, oh, but I've done this, this, and this, and I bought you a bottle of wine. I'm like, yeah, but it all pales into insignificance. It makes us sound really ungrateful, but it's not. If your primary love language is not met, you actually don't feel loved, and actually gives you really big clues back to your childhood. It helps you piece together the bits where perhaps you are wounded. Because for me, my mum and dad didn't tell me they loved me after I was 4, and I never hardly got hugs. They're just not demonstrative people. They do love me. They just didn't show it in the way I needed. So therefore I felt unloved, and I went through life with a lot of problems. Healing from it, but having this awareness, it's a real big key to healing and what we need, don't you think, Stacy?
I'm big on that. Like, even if you don't want to do the love language quiz, we'll often try to give our own love language to the person in our life.
Yeah, and they might not be theirs, so you've got to find out what theirs is.
It's 99% never theirs, right? So then we wonder why they don't like it. So even if you don't like or you don't want to look at the love language, just start to be curious. When does this, what is it that I do that makes this woman come alive? Here's a trick. What did you do when you first met her in the first 12 months that she loved?
Mm.
because that'll give you a clue into what you're no longer doing but wanting. And like I said, before you ever are going to receive it back, you've got to give it. That's why it's called unconditional love,
Mm.
right? As soon as it's conditional, I'm afraid of being rejected or being abandoned. So that fear has to be in my field. It will be mirrored into my relationship. As soon as now the client just recently, him and his wife, I won't share too much, but they had split up. They were living in separate houses. And we did some work, and he found out that he was still holding on to a past relationship that he hadn't actually resolved the breakup. So he was still being guarded. So he had one foot in and one foot out unconsciously.
Yep.
And as soon as we resolved it here, bang, they moved back, they're moving back in together, and life started to flow again. But this is what I talk about. The unconscious wounding is always going to show up. And you can either, I heard a great analogy the other day. Life's gonna draw it out of you no matter what. And you can either have it drawn out of you like poison, slowly painful, out of your control, or you can look at life and go, fuck, this isn't what I want. Like, this is not the marriage I dreamed of having. This is not the relationship I dreamed of having. No matter whether you've got kids, no matter what you've been through, and take responsibility. Okay, this was the key moment. Everything I've ever been taught, everything I've ever done is something I've learned from someone else. And the results that I keep getting are not the results that I see in my conscious mind. There's something I can't see. Soon as I was like, okay, I'm going to go looking, and fucking all you men out there, do you know how many women out there are doing the work that are looking for fucking good men?
And there's a lot of good women out there as well. There's loads. There's
So,
loads. And remember, there's only two operating platforms from where we operate from. We can either operate from love or we can operate from fear. And unfortunately, most of the world is operating from fear. But that makes the love that we have in our life a very poor, watered down version of what love should look like. So when we say do your work, when we say do the work, it's not just because we're coaches. It's because once upon a time, both Stacy and I had not done the work and our life was poorer for it. We have done the work and we continue to do the work. You heard Stacy say before he went out last week for a meal with his wife to have more in-depth conversations. I am forever doing this with my partner, my children, whoever, because it's a forever evolving. It doesn't stop. There's not the end of the piece of string. It goes on. We say do the work because we're so passionate about it, because we know how fucking miserable it once was and how amazing it is now, even with shit things that happen in life. Because there's always going to be shit. But you deal with the shit in a different way.
And the biggest thing I've learned is I still had subconscious programs and coping mechanisms of an 8-year-old boy or a 13-year-old fucking teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So fucking my wife said something, and the program that's activated is the 13-year-old boy who fucking or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And like I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I said, fuck. He said, fuck, you go deep with these conversations now, man. And I said, yeah, but if somebody had sat down and tried to share this with me 3 years ago, I would have laughed at you and told you to fuck off.
Yeah. What?
You're cooked. But when you start to be brutally honest with the results in your life, not the fairy tale, you'll start to realize that what myself and Joe are sharing here couldn't be more true.
Mm. Mm.
And that's why that's why I stand in my power and confidence when I speak about it, because it's the realest thing I've ever known. Now, 3 years ago, I would have been the naysayer on the outside saying, fuck, yous are cooked.
And I'm sure there's people looking at us going, they're mental. That's okay.
Yeah. But you'll never reach your potential in any relationship. And when I talk about relationship, I'm talking about romantic relationship, your financial relationship. Everything is a relationship of a mirror of your internal state. Until you shift that internal state, you will never, ever really get to truly enjoy and grow and expand this experience of life.
I agree. Totally. I agree with most things you say, to be honest with you. But and that's why I work so much around self-love, because it's the self-love, it's the healing of self, it's the going within, it's the finding the self-honor, it's the finding the self-respect. And once we do that, they all start with self for a reason. You know, it starts with self, it starts with you. And once you can work on you and see your faults and see your shadows, you'll be a better person for it. And your relationships will all be sacred, as you said, because it's a relationship with everything, isn't it? Everything in our life is a relationship.
Yeah, you're not really in a relationship with anyone else. You're in a relationship with your doubts, fears, and insecurities. So
Ain't
when
that
you
the truth?
when you can start to realize that what your wife's doing is actually your doubt, fear, and insecurity being mirrored back to you for you to resolve it, or vice versa. As soon as you start looking at that, you start shifting the internal frequency, right? Most people are trying to shift the external reality or get the external reality to change, which is reinforcing the lack or scarcity in the internal world of themselves. Fuck, I know it, man, because it was me.
Yeah.
Like, it was me. And I heard a great one the other day. Most people are, if you had a website and you wanted to change the color green on the website, you'd go in and change the code, and then that would change the color. But most people are trying to paint to change the color of their website, which is their life,
Yeah.
instead of going looking at the code of what's creating the life. So,
Mhm.
and it is a foreign concept initially, because we're not taught this. We're taught that 1+1 = 2, and anything outside of that is weird. So, yeah, just I keep sharing it, but go do the work.
Mm.
Go internal into yourself to figure out what is your shadow need,
Yeah.
because you always create we create shadow needs, and this forms our template for love. And whatever that shadow need is, we will recreate it in our romantic relationships and our health and with money. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I remember when I was young and people, you'd hear that, you end up marrying your father or you end up marrying your mother, and you'd be going, "Ooh, that's just gross." But oh my God, I did it. And not did I do it once, I did it twice. I was like, holy shit. I mean, and don't get me wrong, on the outside, they couldn't have been any different. But actually, when it got to the intricate parts of the relationship, like as you say, those shadow parts, I was like, that's something that my dad would bring out in me, like this hurt or upset or this tension, or that feeling in your body. You'd be like, oh my God, I've married my bloody dad. And I was like, wow, I so thought I was doing it differently. I so thought I was cleverer than that. But you know what? None of us are cleverer than our subconscious programming until we change it.
And it comes back to what I shared. None of us, I would say maybe 1% of the population have had a rite of passage.
Mm,
So you never individuated from mum or dad or the parent that you have the most unresolved wounding with. So guess what you're going to call in? Your mum or your dad energetically. And when you fucking see it, you'll go,
yeah.
fuck,
Well, how many
this is
people?
what
Yeah, how many
how I
people do you know who are like married to a narcissist and they go, "Well, my mum was a narcissist or my dad was a narcissist," and you go, "Well, there you go." And then, but they didn't know what a narcissist was until they're then married to one, and then they go, that's what my mum would do. That's what my dad would do. Well, this is the cycle. This is the cycle. This is what
yeah.
we're in. And often it's not quite as obvious as the narcissist, because that's quite a big, huge, we can put that in a dictionary and we can read about it. Often it's not as, it's more subtle than that, but it's all there.
Yeah, I keep saying this in my videos to me. The modern day rite of passage is healing. You've got to individuate. You've got to individuate from your childhood wounds so that you can come into wholeness within yourself. And as soon as you're in wholeness within yourself, your romantic relationship will be whole. Because you
Yeah.
no longer, like I share it, like these are our childhood wounds.
Mm.
So when we come together, we attract in someone with the same or similar wounds, right? We feel wholeness for a while.
Yeah.
This can be our children. You shared it, how you felt this overwhelming love. You felt wholeness in the absence of your childhood wounding, but it's an external source that's creating that. So that will eventually fracture, pull apart for you to have to look at it. But it shows you how alive, I really believe God, the universe source, is going to show us what wholeness feels like for a brief moment in time, right? For us to break apart, but usually we try to get it back in the same source that we lost it. And that creates more pain. And then we've got to actually realize, okay, midlife crisis isn't a crisis. You're always in a crisis. You just took to your midlife to realize it.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you say that, because I have way more clients now in their 20s. They're getting it way earlier than midlife, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is so awesome. They're getting it way earlier. I'm like, thank Christ for that. You didn't have to wait till 30, 40, 50, 60. So yeah. No, awesome. Awesome. Another amazing episode, as always. Please, if you're listening and you've got any relationship woes, as you've heard, we don't mention any names. We don't tell our sources if they don't want to. You're more than welcome to come on live with us, and we're happy to do like a mini coaching session. But if you're not brave enough to do that, which I totally understand, it's about your relationship. These things are often private and kept behind closed doors. But please do message either me or Stacy privately, and we'll bring the questions out into the open forum in an anonymous way. That's very hard to say.
It's so important, to bring these things that you're struggling with in silence into the light, even if it's anonymous, don't stew on it, sit in it, hide behind it, put on the show when you're truly suffering. Even just asking a question anonymously can be, the first step to having the courage to go even deeper or further than that. Like I shared in my experience when I sat down, I was like, fuck, I don't want people to know that my life's a fuck up. But it's not until
no, now you're happy to share, aren't you? Because you can share from a different perspective. And the questions don't have to be about another person in the relationship. They can be about you and what you're going through, because it's a relationship with self. So, it doesn't have to be, oh, this is happening in my relationship. It can be something to do with yourself as well, or a relationship with your children, or, as you say, finances, money, because we've got some insight into all of it. So please do. And as you say, sometimes writing that question down, bringing that awareness changes the energy. And as you said, it's the first step to go in. And it's brave. It's very brave to do it. So send us any of your questions.
Try this to anyone out there that's been wanting, and I know there'll be a bunch of people out there that's been wanting to ask a question, whether it's to Joe or myself. The thing is, the question's going to be asked anonymously, but when you send the question to Joanne or myself, it's not anonymous. So there's a part of you that's like, fuck, I really want to ask this question, but I'm afraid of what will Joe think? What will Stacy think? The shame, right? And this is what keeps us, the shackles of guilt and shame. Whereas if you just go, you know what, fuck it. Everyone has got shit going on that you wouldn't even know about. Get it out. Like, just be honest. Fuck, this is what's going on. Can I ask it? Life forum. Freedom comes.
Be brave, be bold, and we will leave you that. So thank you so much from myself and Stacy on the Sacred Relationship Lab, and all relationships can be sacred. So we wish you a very